Most Christians are aware of this basic gospel truth. Jesus died to pay for sins.
Right.
Physical death is the penalty for sin. Romans 5 says that sin came into the world through one man and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned. When Adam sinned, God said in Genesis 3:19 that he would return to dust. He would die physically.
Right, and beginning at verse 17, up a couple of verses, we read that God cursed the ground so that it would produce thorns and thistles and would now require the sweat of your face. It would require hard work to get food from the ground. Now, let's consider thorns specifically. Since there are fossil thorns, they couldn't have been fossilized before sin, right? But the evolutionary history places them at hundreds of millions of years before any human being. That's backwards.
That's right. In addition, Romans 8:19 and 20 tells us the whole creation. In other words, the whole entire physical creation groans under the weight of sin. That means animals were affected. Genesis 1:29 and 30 reveals that initially both people and animals ate plants. Now, this is consistent with the no death before sin principle. There was no death of nefesh kaya creatures, which include both people and animals, before sin.
Now, nefesh kaya is a Hebrew word, Hebrew phrase for living being or living soul. We see it where God breathes into Adam in Genesis 2:7. He becomes a nefesh kaya, living being, living soul. The same term is used in 1 Corinthians 15:45, again to describe Adam.
Here are several places where it is used in Genesis. Note that animals in the sea and on land are described with the same term. They have this level of life, but plants are not included. In the Bible, plants wither and fade. They don't really die because they're not really alive in the nefesh sense.
Yeah. Other passages also shed valuable light on how the Bible defines life. Leviticus 17:11, for example, states that the life of the flesh is in the blood. And also you see that mentioned in Deuteronomy 12:23 and in Genesis 9:4. The word translated life there is nefesh. And this links life with the presence of blood. There's another detail.
Blood is an indicator of life in the nefesh sense.
Right.
And this logically connects with the way in which blood had to be shed for the forgiveness of sins. Death is the penalty for sin, so something has to die in order to atone for people's sin. Before Christ, God allowed that animals, specifically certain mammals and birds, could die or shed their blood as a sacrifice for sin.
Yeah, now this covered sin only in a limited and temporary basis, of course. Only the blood of the Messiah shed on the cross could actually take away sin, as explained in Hebrews 9 and 10. One of the reasons that Cain's sacrifice of plants wasn't accepted is because that's something without blood. It's not alive in the nefesh sense, and so couldn't die as a substitute for human sin.
All that to say that a biblically consistent picture of the world God describes as very good before Adam sinned could not have included animals ripping each other up or poisonous fangs, etc. In other words, no carnivorous activity, no death of nefesh creatures, including both animals and people before Adam sinned.
Yeah, but plants, insects, the billions of bacteria, for example, that die in the process of digesting your food, those things aren't included in the no death before sin principle.
Putting it all together, if there was death of nefesh creatures happening for millions of years before the fall, as evolutionary history says there was, then death is not the result of sin.
Right.
It has nothing to do with sin, and therefore Jesus' death did not pay for sins.